This is the FeiyuTech AK4500 and I'm gonna tell you why it's the most underrated gimbal. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're here for the first time, my name is Jussi and this channel is all about filmmaking, tips, tutorials and camera gear. And on this video I'm going to give you my review of the FeiyuTech's AK4500 Gimbal, which honestly I didn't expect to be this good. So FeiyuTech reached out to me and asked whether or not I'd be interested in trying out the AK4500, and even though it's not a new gimbal, I was still very curious because I'd seen some reviews in the past that said that this gimbal is actually pretty good. So naturally I wanted to test it out myself. So a huge thank you for FeiyuTech for sending me this gimbal. Now, if you want to get the AK4500 with the Essentials kit, which is the one that I have, it comes around $550 US, which is good because it's quite a lot cheaper than many other competitive gimbals, and it includes this versatile handle frame, which essentially means that you can attach the bottom tripod and use it as an other handle by attaching it either to the top or the bottom of the versatile handle frame, and that allows you to use your gimbal in a more comfortable way and more versatile ways when you're filming with it. Now, I gotta say this because this is really important to me. The gimbal basically worked like a charm and so smoothly straight out of the box. I mean, the only thing that I had to do was to calibrate the gimbal, and even that I could do just straight from the screen, the touch screen of the gimbal, without having to pull out my phone and use an app to calibrate the gimbal. And I mean, the first time I used this gimbal, there were no jerky or jittery camera moves with the gimbal and no hiccups whatsoever. It was so easy to use that I believe that this might be the easiest gimbal to use. Probably the only gimbal that has been as easy as this one to use was the Ronin S when I bought it back in 2018. So this is like so easy and so fun to use. Probably the best feature of this gimbal is the fact that you can control essentially everything straight from the touchscreen without ever having to pull out your phone to use the app to change the settings and the modes. My apologies, I'm gonna have to read straight from my notes from my phone because I've got a terrible memory. But the first mode is the all follow mode, which essentially means that whichever way you're gonna move your gimbal, the camera will follow. And you can do, for example, these cool Dutch angle moves. Then we've got the pan mode, which means that the camera will follow when you pan left or when you pan to right. Then we've got the lock mode, which means that the camera won't tilt or the camera won't pan to left or right. And this is great, for example, for for filming those follow shots where you're following the subject walking forwards, because the lock mode will take care that the camera won't tilt accidentally to left or right. And just like in every modern gimbal, the AK4500 has this 360 roll, or better known as inception mode, which means that you can make the camera rotate 360 degrees. And the cool thing about the AK4500 is that you can control it to make either a single rotation or you can keep it rotating until you tell it to stop. And that's a really cool feature because in some shots you might want to make it just do one single rotation. Even though this gimbal was very smooth straight out of the box, I still love it that you can control the sensitivity of the gimbal through the touchscreen. For example, you can choose different modes. The first mode is the default mode, then you have smooth mode, and you have this action mode, which allows you to create really cool, fast movements like in some action scenes, for example. Now, this next feature is huge for me, and it's called motion time-lapse. Yes, I know, it's pretty self-explanatory, and essentially it means a time-lapse with motion. So you can do a camera movement from left to right while doing a time-lapse, which does indeed look pretty cool, but that's not the reason why I'm so excited about this feature. The reason why I'm so excited about it is that I can use it for filming myself and have the gimbal do the camera movement. So the way I do it is that I set a point A where the camera movement starts, and then I set a point B where I want the camera movement to end. Also, the motors of this gimbal are pretty strong. Like, the payload of this gimbal is 10.14 pounds and 4.6 kilos, which is quite a lot. So if you wanna, you can use this with a bigger setup, like a bigger DSLR camera with a huge lens, and I'm pretty sure it will work just fine. And the weight of the gimbal, the actual gimbal, is 1.6 kilograms. I forgot how much that is on pounds, but I'll put it somewhere here on the screen for you Americans. Another feature in this gimbal that is very important to me is that I can lock all of the arms of the gimbal, which makes it so much easier to just put it on my bag and go from one place to another without having the gimbal's arms flapping around when I'm moving from one place to another. Another thing that I like about this gimbal is that it can fully detach the handle of the gimbal, which makes it so much easier to put the gimbal in small parts in your bag if you want to put it inside your bag when you're transporting the gimbal to one place to another. There is one major flaw in this gimbal in my opinion, and that's the battery life. I'm not fully convinced that this actually has a 12-hour battery life like they claim, because the first day that I used this gimbal, after using it for 7 hours, it only showed 2 blocks of battery life left. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't show the percentage of the battery life left. I've had the Ronin S, which had a 12-hour battery life, and I never had any issues with the battery life. I could easily sometimes go like 2 full days of shoot with the Ronin S with one fully charged battery, and the same goes with the Zion Crane 2S. I'm not still yet convinced that this battery life is good enough for me. I think that's the only downside that I can think of this gimbal. So, what are my final thoughts about the FeiyuTech AK4500 Gimbal? Well, I must say it's a pretty dang good gimbal, and even though I'm not quite sure about the battery life, this gimbal works like a charm, and it's got most of the features that all modern gimbals have, and it's got a great bang for your buck. For example, it's a lot cheaper than the top of the line Ronin RS2, for example. So if you're on a budget but you need a gimbal that you can trust, then this is definitely a good option. So I highly can recommend it if you're in the market for this kind of a gimbal. Okay, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you watch either one of these 2 gimbal videos that I filmed using the AK4500. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care.